Geek out! LaserDicks, you sexy motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Hey, and welcome to another exciting episode of LaserDicks. I'm Chris, and unfortunately, I'm all by myself today. Sometimes shit happens, and you wait to the last minute to record an episode, and you just can't get your co-host, the schedules to rectify. So, unfortunately, it's just going to be my voice today, guys, and it's probably going to be a pretty short episode because I feel like most of the episode is filled with us bantering back and forth to each other. So it's not going to be nearly as long as it normally is, and I'm not nearly as organized as Jake is when he has his solo episodes with no co-host. So, again, kind of unfortunate that I don't have Ken with me because it being just after Christmas and all, we celebrate Christmas, and we both got LaserDicks for as gifts. I know he got some pretty cool ones from his old roommate and our mutual friend Anne, and so I kind of wanted to talk to him about that stuff. So I guess next episode we'll talk about that, but that doesn't stop me from talking about my Christmas presents from him, oddly enough. Ken got me both the first and second installments of the Darkman series, which is an old, I guess not old, but like late 80s, early 90s, I think. Again, not prepared at all. Movie series by the lovely Sam Raimi. Oh, there it is. Copyright 1990 for the first one. Cool. In this series, a dude who is really cool with making like prosthetic body parts gets in trouble with, I believe, the mob or the mafia, if there's a distinguishing thing. It's movies, so it doesn't really matter, but gets in trouble with them, gets his face burnt off, and his hands as well, and goes kind of crazy, and basically uses his skills as a prosthesis maker, we'll say, and makes fake faces and impersonates people and destroys that crime family from within. And it's really good, and it's like classic Sam Raimi. It's like he got enough notoriety from Evil Dead 1 and 2 that MCA Universal gave him a bigger budget, and he made this weird, dark superhero movie that only he could make. And it's lovely. And true to form, his brother Ted Raimi is in it. He plays one of the thugs for the crime family, and Bruce Campbell, if blink and you miss him, makes a cameo right near the end as one of the alternate faces of Darkman. So this is really cool. This has actually been on my wish list for a little while. I've just never found someone with reasonable pricing for it. So I hopefully Ken found reasonable pricing, or he just loves me that much and spent that much money on me. Either way, I'm fine. But yeah, so he got me Darkman 1 and 2. There is a third installment, Die, Darkman, Die, which I guess now is the only one that I need to finish the series. It's pretty cool. Both of them come letterboxed widescreen, and they're both CLV extended play versions. And as always, I like to laugh at the little blip that comes with the letterboxed edition installments, just because no one really was used to letterboxing at the time. So on the back cover of both of these, it says Letterboxd Edition. This film on the film on this Laserdisc is presented in the 1.85 by 1 aspect ratio of the original 35 millimeter theatrical print. The black area on the top and bottom of the image are normal for this format. Proportions may vary based upon the monitor used for playback. I don't know why, but it just makes me giggle that people didn't understand, or at least that the studios were afraid that people wouldn't understand what widescreen is, even though the front of the box says letterboxed, and it even kind of, because the boxes or the sleeves for these are square, it even kind of gives you an idea of what a letterboxed image looks like, because it has a spacescape on the top and bottom of it, basically showing you the difference between a square image and a widescreen image. So, unfortunately, that's all I got LaserDisc-wise for Christmas. It was a family and friends got me other stuff this year, so it wasn't a LaserDisc-heavy Christmas like it was last year. but that's cool too because I like GIFs of all types. But so because of that, because I didn't want a 5-minute long episode, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some other LaserDiscs that I recently picked up. So for your entertainment, I present to you the Die Hard trilogy. Now, granted, anyone that remembers a couple months ago for my birthday haul, get Die Hard for my birthday this year, I finally got around to completing the trilogy, or at least the LaserDisc version of the trilogy, because parts 4 and 5 will sadly never be released on LaserDisc, but at the same time, I'm not terribly saddened by that. Even though 4 was entertaining, 5 was awful, and that's fine. It happens. But so I now have the complete LaserDisc trilogy of Die Hard, and these are really awesome. They all span 2 discs. The first one because of length, and the second and third one because the third side is CAV quality. Otherwise, the rest of the movies is all CLV. All 3 of them are letterboxed widescreen, and because they're all 2 discs long, they have a beautiful gatefold in the middle of the packaging. So the first one, we'll just start. We'll go in order. So we got the first one here. Of course, on the front, it's got the classic Nakatomi Towers blowing up cover. Then on the inside, it has a cool shot of Bruce Willis running away from an explosion on the roof, or I guess that's the gunfire on the roof. And then, on the back, badass shot of Alan Rickman pointing the gun at Bruce Willis before he realizes that it's not loaded. But these movies were always, well, not always. I didn't find out about Die Hard really until I was until With a Vengeance came out, and I watched it, loved it so much that I ended up watching all 3 of them a bunch of times. For me, the third one will always be the best, but that's because that's how I was introduced to it. This year, I did, since I got Vengeance With a Vengeance a couple weeks before Christmas came out, I decided to do a marathon of the 3 movies as kind of preparing for Christmas, because yes, the first 2 take place during Christmas time. That's right, the first 2. Everyone always yells about the first one being a Christmas movie, and personally to me that argument is old and dumb, because I've never heard anyone argue that it's not a Christmas movie. We can get into debates whether it's the best Christmas movie. That's fine. That's an opinion-based thing, but it's a fucking Christmas movie. But everyone forgets that the second one also takes place during Christmas, and therefore it is just as much a Christmas movie as the first one. And you can fight me on that. But yeah, so I watched all 3 movies. So it was fun watching them on LaserDisc. Fun fact, I live in the DC area, so part 2 is always kind of a laugh ride for me, because it takes place at Dulles Airport, although it was filmed in Michigan or something like that. Again, super professional, doing all my homework, finding out where these things were filmed. But if I remember correctly, it was filmed in Michigan, so it doesn't look like Dulles Airport at all. And then being someone that lives around here, I've always, every time I'm watching it, I'm like, those planes that are just flying around in the air, why don't they just go to Reagan, or at the time, National, or BWI, because those airports are within a couple miles. BWI is the furthest one away, and it's only 50, maybe 100 miles away. Those planes could have easily made it. And National is a stone's throw away from Dulles. And there's minor airports all around the place. I don't know if they have the space required for a big jetliner, but in a pinch, I'm sure they would have made do. But that's, just nitpicking, and usually I try to forget about that stuff to enjoy the movie. And I can still enjoy the movie knowing that there's several airports around us. So whatever. And it doesn't have to look like Dulles for me to enjoy and be yeah, sure, it takes place at Dulles. Why not? So, again, the cover is a big explosion right behind Dulles. I guess it's one of the airplanes exploding. The gatefold is him in a duct, very typical, or Bruce Willis in a duct, very typical of the movie series. And the shot of him ejecting out of the exploding plane, which is always lovely because that face is just face. And then on the back you get some cool shots of him on the people mover, all bloody, and then him embracing his wife at the end. Like I said earlier, cool thing about this one, side 3 is in CAV quality, so you get to see all the cool climax stuff with the exploding plane, his yippee-ki-yay motherfucker moment, all in beautiful CAV quality, which is really nice. Then on to Die Hard with a Vengeance, also known as Die Hard 3. Like I said, my favorite of the series, just because it was my introduction, and I love Samuel L. Jackson, and Jeremy Irons kicks ass. I love him as a villain. He killed it in Lion King, and I'm sure he's been the villain in something else, other than, Die Hard with a Vengeance. But, so yeah, this one, I actually, when I moved to New York, because as I'm sure you all know, I spent a couple years in New York after college. When I moved to New York, this was one of the movies that I watched that I was like, yes, this is a New York movie. I got to check it out. And to my understanding at the time, and as I've revisited it a couple times since then, this is one of the most geographically accurate New York movies I've ever watched. Minus, here and there, it would take more than 30 minutes to go from wherever to wherever or something like that. But it's way more geographically accurate than something like The Warriors, which just jumps all over New York City and pretends that it's all just the Bronx or Manhattan, or Coney Island. But Coney Island was actually Coney Island. I think Coney Island is actually the only part in The Warriors that's actually Coney Island. But so that's a nice thing for me. Like, one, it was my introduction to the series, and two, it was a very, fond love letter, as far as I'm concerned, to New York, as someone that had been living there for maybe about 6 months by the time I watched it. I had just really kind of gotten the lay of the land and felt comfortable being able to be like, that ain't right. Like when you watch The Avengers and you're like, that's not Manhattan, and turns out it's parts of Cleveland and stuff like that. But so here I am sitting with my Die Hard with a Vengeance on LaserDisc. Much like Die Hard 2, the side 3 is all CAV quality. Sides 1 and 2 CLV. So basically, all that means is just the stuff that's in Canada is CAV quality. So you get that cool helicopter explosion, and Sam Jackson saying the line, "Let him cook." And then it also comes with theatrical trailers for parts 1 and 2. I should double check the other ones, see if that comes with anything cool like that. Die Hard 2 comes with some behind the scenes, making of featurettes. And a theatrical trailer for Die Hard. That's cute. Or is it a behind the scenes featurette, or is it just a? Oh no, I'm sorry. It's just in the gatefold. There's like a cool little thing talking about how they got the some of the filming stuff that they did. So it's a text-based behind the scenes thing. It's not a actual featurette. And then I should have said the gatefold in the first Die Hard has a really cool write-up on some behind-the-scenes stuff, which is another thing that was so cool about LaserDisc, especially with these ones that have the bifold, the gatefold. Like they would, there's so much more information than you would find just on the back of like a VHS tape or Blu-ray or a DVD box. They can write a whole thing. I know that I think it's The Abyss or Last Action Hero or True Lies. Sorry. Like James Cameron has this huge write-up just about his love of filmmaking, and it's really cool. And then so front of the box, standard, John McClane looking with an explosion going off behind him, and then far back in the back is New York skyline. You see the Empire State Building, so everyone knows that it's New York. Gatefold has a lot of stuff going on, a lot of clips, a lot of shots from the movie. The explosion from the beginning of the film, a couple cool interactions between various characters, including Sam Jackson holding the machine gun up to Jeremy Irons right before he says, "You just forgot to turn the safety off." So a nice little repeating gag, at least in my mind, with from the part 1 with Alan Cummings' character not knowing that the gun wasn't loaded. It's cute. And then in the back, you have more shots from inside, the explosion at Wall Street, and then some like character shots of Bruce Willis, Jeremy Irons, and Sam Jackson. That's really all I got to say about this. It has like a little side note, just for me. It has my favorite logo for the widescreen edition that has the like Fox Searchlight type thing making a W. Look that up. It's really cool. It's on, I don't know, maybe about a third of the widescreen LaserDiscs that I've ever owned. It's pretty cool. And then to round out the episode, I'm going to talk about Stanley Kubrick's classic Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. I recently procured the Criterion Collection Laserdisc of this, which is kind of a strange thing in my case, mostly because I've only ever seen this movie twice. Once after I bought the Laserdisc, I watched the Laserdisc to check it out. The other time was late high school, maybe early college time, so about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, maybe 10 to 15 years ago. I was just curious about it, and I knew that it was a big name movie, so I was like, oh, I should probably check this out, see what it's all about. And I didn't like it at all. Like I don't even think I finished it the first time I watched it. And it was one of those things that as I grew, like when I went to film school and I grew as a filmmaker, like I started realizing that I really loved Stanley Kubrick style. So it was one of those ones that was always like kind of on the back burner. Like I should revisit that one. You know, I love Stanley Kubrick so much. I should probably give it another shot, especially now that I have, you know, quote unquote greater appreciation for the art of filmmaking or whatever you want to call it. So I decided to. So a little while ago, I was just searching Laserdiscs, and I saw this. And I saw that it had a really cool, like the Criterion Collection has a really cool cover of an atom bomb exploding. So I was like, oh man, even if I don't like it, that's still a cool cover to have in the collection, you know? So I went ahead, bit the bullet, bought it, and decided to give it another chance. I'm gonna skip to the end real quick. Still don't like it. I don't know what it is. It's very, I guess it's like a little too dry for me, maybe, or what. But so much of the humor just falls flat, and like I don't get it. Like I get that it's a satire, and I get, you know, and I'm the first one to be kind of anti-establishment, you know. So like you'd think that I would like it, but it just doesn't work for me, I guess, is what I'm saying. But I can respect it as a Laserdisc because it's Criterion Collection, which usually like 90% of the time, 75 to 90% of the time, that means it's aces, you know. At the very least, it's a good copy of the movie. So, and it is. It's beautiful, beautiful restoration of it. It comes in the original. Where does it say the actual number? Here we go. It comes in the original alternating aspect ratios of 166 to 1 and 133 to 1. Interesting thing, for whatever reason, I'm sure it says somewhere on here, and I just didn't pay attention to it. But for whatever reason, Stanley Kubrick shot it in 133 by 1, which, if I remember my math correctly, and I apologize if I screw this up, but if I remember my math correctly, is the standard 3 by 4 or 4 by 3, sorry, of, you know, at the time, you know, normal, like the square frame television. And so, you know, at the time this was being filmed, sometime, you know, like that was still like the standard aspect, or, you know, quote unquote standard aspect ratio, except for like movies that were like filmed in CinemaScope and all those other things that were just gimmicks to get people into the theater. And yeah, that's why widescreen became such a prevalent thing, so that it was something that made it different, much like how in like the 80s and 90s, like it was like, oh, this one's in 3D and you can't do 3D at home, and now you can do widescreen and you can do 3D and you can do 4K. So in like 5 years, there's going to be another gimmick. I think, like, you know, D-Box is something that's coming out as kind of a gimmick, but now there's D-Box home seats. So, you know, they're going to find something to get your butts in the seat. But yeah, so a good portion of the movie is shot in 133 by 1, and then there's the occasional switch to 166 by 1, which is barely wider, but still is wider. So so on my version, since I'm watching on a widescreen TV, there's black bars on the sides to compensate for the square ratio, and then occasionally there's a black bar, a tiny black bar on the top and bottom to compensate for the 166 by 1. Don't know why he did it, but cool. But yes, I think I think if I remember reading correctly, like 166 by 1 was actually more common of an aspect ratio that movie projectors could do. Like they can do 4 by 3 or 133 by 1, but it's more common for it to be 166 by 1 for whatever reason. So then, because like 185 by 1 is your standard 16 by 9, and then 235 by 1 is your super widescreen scope lens. So who knows? I don't know. I don't pretend to know. I'm just reading the facts. But so the entire movie, again, Criterion Collection. So the entire movie is CAV quality, which means it is beautiful. It's all black and white, just like the original movie was filmed in. It spans 4 sides, although most of the fourth side is all supplemental material, which is actually really cool. There's a lot of stuff on like the making of and creating, like the pre-production, or not pre but like the building and stuff like that of the sets and things like that. And then so the front cover, like I said, the atom bomb. The gatefold is a lot of shots from inside the war room, and a big old write-up by Mark Deary. I think I'm pronouncing that name right. And then on the back, it has a small version of the original cover of just like the hand-drawn president and leader of the USSR. I forget. The dictator of whatever. I forget the political position, but the leaders of the U.S. and the USSR talking on the phone with the planes going over them. You know the cover, and if you don't know, you can look it up. It's not, it's pretty easy. And then it has the standard kind of Criterion Collection write up for the restoration. So that's it for this week or this month or whatever the duration of time is. Thank you for listening. What is it that Ken does? Ken's the one that does it. LaserDicks.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a new commentary every Monday. We've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.